All right, what's up, everyone? It's Zach, and today I'm here with a very special guest. I'm here with Jake Apostol. Jake, how are you doing today?
What's up, Zach? I'm doing all right. I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
Glad to hear it, man. I'm doing well. Thanks for asking, and thanks for taking some time to chat today.
Of course, of course. You seem like a great kid. This seems like an awesome podcast, and I'm just happy to be a part of it, man.
Thank you, man. Appreciate that. So, Jake's from California, like the LA area, and has spent the last few years in on the East Coast, actually at Syracuse, recently graduating. And I believe you said your degree is sports management and then business management minor.
Yeah, business minor. I'm actually
Business minor.
graduating this upcoming Saturday, so I'm flying to New York
Sure.
tonight. But yeah,
Awesome, man. Congratulations again with that. And yeah, that's just kind of like the basics about you and what honestly I know of you right now. But do you mind going into your background a little bit, maybe who you are, what you're up to, all that good stuff?
yeah, of course. So as you sort of mentioned and already touched on, I'm Jake Apostol. I'm a sport management major, business minor from Los Angeles, California, attending Syracuse University. Um, I don't know. I think this is one thing I like to pride myself on is I'm from Valencia, California, which is like a suburb 35 minutes north of Los Angeles, and I'm Filipino. And being a Filipino kid that's into sports, you don't really see many of us like I talk about this a lot, but like I realized at a young age that I was never making it to the league. I was never going to play professional basketball, but I always knew I could help those players that were able to make it to that league. So I decided to go to school all the way across the country, and I've always wanted to incorporate business and sports together. So that's how I ended up at Syracuse. And after I graduate, I'm aspiring to be a basketball agent. So that's a little background of myself. And besides like the whole sports and being Filipino, I guess another part of me is that I'm a really, really big music head. I love hip hop, love R&B, and that's sort of what I do. Oh, I also write for two music bags back on campus. So that's, I guess, a little bio about myself.
Awesome, man. That's so cool. And with sports, so is it just basketball or is it sports that you have a love for?
So originally it was just basketball, and then as I sort of opened up my horizons to other sports, like I've always been a big football guy too. Like a lot of my family's from the Bay Area, so we're Niner fans. Um, but like looking back, like I was never a really big baseball guy until my friends who were all on the baseball team ended up taking me to a game, and I fell in love with that sport too, just like the whole environment. It's really sports as a business, sort of like as its own entity. But when it goes down into like the nitty gritty and like what I personally want to see myself in, it would be basketball.
Gotcha. Okay. And now I have to ask, was part of wanting to go to Syracuse because of how historic their basketball program is?
Here's the thing, man. I'm not even gonna lie. I didn't know anything about Syracuse basketball. Like I knew it was a cool school. I think when I
Yeah.
applied, one of the questions on the infamous Common App is like, how do you want to leave Syracuse, or like, what is the modern image of success or whatever, right? And I
Yeah.
name dropped Carmelo and Michael Carter Williams. I had no clue about any other basketball player that had ever gone besides Carmelo. So
Yeah.
by the time I got there, everyone's making a big deal talking about, oh, it's Syracuse basketball, this, that, and the other. And I'm like, I go to the school now, so I'm like, I have to be really intact with the culture. And then I realized how big of a basketball school it was, like from Jim Boeheim to
Yeah.
all their appearances in March Madness. I'm just like, whoa. But no, I had no clue it was a basketball school. But after being there for 4 years, I was like, yeah, I wear orange on my chest now. Like I rep it to the fullest because of its basketball history.
I love that. That's so funny that like I mean, who doesn't know Mello, but
Yeah,
just like going
exactly.
in with like little kind of knowledge about the program and then just like it fits perfectly with you, right? Like I mean, just to imagine even having the opportunities to go to some of the games, as a student, I'm sure it was probably a great experience if you were able to go to any.
Oh, trust me, I have worked every job in terms of basketball with Syracuse University. Like I've
Yeah.
trust me, like I'm 21 now, so I can say it. But like, I've been there. I've been, the college student that, we get a beer or two, go watch the Duke game, go,
Yeah.
watch all that. But I've also been on the floor as like a Q's crew and I've like sold, I've worked concession stands too. So I've worked every aspect, and I've been in every aspect of Syracuse basketball. And I can tell you now, I think being a student and just being in that entire dome while, 30,000 fans erupt simultaneously, just
Yeah.
seeing like a player dunk is perhaps one of the most surreal experiences I've ever had.
That's awesome. So Jake, you mentioned you're from California and then you went out to Syracuse for school. Like, what was that like for you? I mean, was there anything that drove you to wanting to go across the country for college, or like what was that transition like? Was it all good? Did you struggle with it any?
Oh man. Okay. Here's the thing about that. So I actually love talking about this whole process because I think it's funny because, whenever I'm in Syracuse, I get to name drop I'm from California. And
Yeah,
whenever I'm back home, I get to name drop the fact that I go to school in New York, right?
right.
So I think it's sort of cool. But here's the thing, I'm actually an only child to the product of Filipino parents, right? So
Mhm.
I'm their little boy, right? I'm their baby boy. They never wanted me going, like, out of everyone in my friend group, they definitely did not expect me to be the one to leave, the state. And to be honest with you, I only applied to West Coast schools with the exception of like two East Coast schools. And I got waitlisted for my top two. I got denied from like all three San Diego schools within the same hour on the same day.
Wow.
So like it wasn't looking that good. And then I ended up getting into Syracuse. And because, I didn't really have that many options, I think I had Syracuse, Emerson, CSUN, and then I got waitlisted at LMU. What ended up happening was I just decided to go to Syracuse because it was the only school I got accepted in for sport management. And I was like, you know what? Just like you said, it's a basketball school. I did light research, like they have a good program. I guess I'm gonna go check it out. So next thing you know, I'm on a plane with my dad, 3,000 miles away from home. We land, and all I see is just nature and green and just real stuff that doesn't identify with Los Angeles or what I've seen growing up.
Yeah,
And then I'm there, and I realize Syracuse it's like the campus itself is its own little city within a city, right?
right.
And I realized, I'm 3,000 miles away from home. And like Zach, where are you from, Zach? I gotta ask
I'm from
real quick before.
Michigan.
Okay, so in Michigan, you have your kids that go to UMich, Michigan State, like a bunch of other Michigan schools, and occasionally you'll probably see those kids drive back home on a weekend just in case like they miss their family, they miss their friends that are probably going like JUCO back home. And like I never got that experience because I can't just hop on a plane,
Right.
3,000 miles and just go see my family. So really going to school 3,000 miles away from home really built me as a person, like, in terms of independence, learning sense of self, really understanding what makes me as a person. I think all of that really encompassed, my experience at Syracuse, going to school away from my family. So it like, in a sense, I never really wanted to go to school and leave my entire family and like all my friends at home. It was just the path that was sort of given to me, right?
Right.
But looking back at it, I'm super grateful for the opportunity, really happy about how I came out of the situation, and, really happy with all the connections, all the people, all the friendships I've made throughout, the last 4 years.
That's awesome, man. So, like, I'm assuming when you went out to Syracuse, you didn't have any friends or anything that were really going with you or anything, right?
Oh, here's the crazy thing. Oh, I get to name drop. Awesome. But here's the thing. So I'm not sure how other kids do it nowadays, but when I first got into Syracuse, when I got my acceptance letter, right? My friend JP, who goes to Occidental College, he me like he was the first one out of our friend group to get accepted into college. So he's showing us, he's like, hey, these are all the people I've met. Like we all joined a group chat, through Facebook, and like now I'm in a group me. And I was like, I want that experience. So
Yeah.
I haven't used Facebook in years. So I reactivated my Facebook. I hopped in the first group chat I saw. I think it was like class of 2021 Syracuse, and everyone makes like these giant group me's or whatever. And I hopped in a group me of like 200 people, and it's literally just people just spamming messages, whatever. And I'm like, okay. And I'm an extrovert by nature. I love talking to people,
Yeah.
but over text it's completely different. So I was like, I got to make myself seem noticed. So I just started talking to whoever was talking at the time, and those people made a separate group chat, and those ended up being the friends. Like I think it was like May or like June before we all went to Syracuse. And those small like 12, 13 people that I met that we made a subgroup chat of, I ended up talking to those people, and I think six of them, they ended up being some of my closest friends on campus at Syracuse. And I ended up knowing them before we went in, like during freshman year. So I already
Yeah.
had like a small set of friend groups, or a small set of friends before I went, which was really like, it was a lot easier for me to make that transition. And on top of that, I don't know how this happened, but one of my really close friends at the time, he was actually my neighbor. We went to elementary school together, and then he moved away all the way to New York. Like when we were young, I think we were like seventh, eighth grade, and he moved away. And then I don't know how, I think he found me through Facebook, or one of our mutual friends that he still used to talk to from elementary school let him know that I was going to Syracuse. He also ended up going to Syracuse from Long Island, and we ended up being friends because we were in the same dorm. So yeah, that was pretty cool.
Wow, that's wild, man. And I mean, also, yeah, like I graduated from undergrad in 2018, and I'm actually doing my master's now. But like back when I was going into college, I remember like there's that like I went to Central Michigan. There's like a Central Michigan like Facebook type app
Mm-hmm.
thing that it's kind of like the same premise, like just a whole bunch of people like, hey, class of 2018, what's up? Like you could use it to find roommates if you needed a roommate or whatever. So that's really
Yeah,
cool that you're able to utilize that, especially like for someone like you, Jake, where you're traveling thousands of miles away. Like it's not like you could just go to campus and be like, oh, hey, like I never really knew this person, but I went to high school with them, or like they went to the high school like couple miles away. Like you
exactly. Yeah,
literally were like, I need to meet people, and you made it happen. So that's awesome. And it's cool that some of them became some of your best friends that you've made there.
of course. Yeah, I'm gonna name drop because I can. Shout out my boy Birch. Shout out my girl Paola. Hey, I gotta ask Zach.
Yeah.
Central Michigan, and you're doing your master's. Central Michigan for undergrad, and now you're doing your master's. Where are you doing your master's at, by the way?
I'm actually doing it at Central Michigan.
Word. What was your major as an undergrad student, and like your sort of process choosing that major and thinking, okay, I'm gonna do this, and then maybe down the road I'll pick up, this, that, and the other, or maybe I'll go to grad school. Maybe I'll do this after. What was that whole process like?
For sure. So yeah, did undergrad at CMU, started in 2014. Going into college, I was a little undecided with major. I did AP psychology in high school and I loved it. So I was really big on psychology and I loved people and just connecting with people and just how like people worked. So that's kind of what I was thinking about. But then I went into college and my first like year and a half, I just heard from people and just research online, got like the fear of, oh, I'm going to major in psych and not be able to find a job and not
Mm-hmm.
have like stability in my life, or I'm going to have to go to grad school. And at that time in my life, financially, grad school wasn't really like a possibility for me,
Mm-hmm.
or anything I was considering. So out of fear, essentially, I switched my major to economics. So
Wow.
I was an econ major, minoring in leadership and psychology. And
Wow.
yeah, and I did that because like I did well in high school econ. It was like interesting enough, and I was like, I can probably get like a cool, analyst job, whatever, that will be pretty well paying and stuff. So I did that for about a year and a half, and I hated it. I was so miserable, man. Like I couldn't do econ. Like I was doing fine enough in the class, and I was passing, but I was just so
Uh-huh.
miserable. So I made the switch, and then I switched. I took the psych minor and made it my major. So psych major, and then I minored in leadership and management, and that's what I actually ended up finishing my undergrad in.
That's so
Um,
cool.
yeah, thank you. And it's kind of similar to you in a sense, Jake, where I wanted to combine psychology and just people with business. So
Mm-hmm.
kind of like sports and business, but more so than just the general people in business. And
Mm-hmm.
I come from an athletic background. I love sports to this day, so I really got big into like sports
Respect.
psychology and social psychology, which is
Wow.
really interesting to me. So yeah, really, I was just thinking about how I can take psychology and use that in the business world. So really what that kind of helped me figure out was things like human resources. So whether
Mm-hmm.
that's training, developing, coaching, interviewing, recruiting, stuff like that. That's where I kind of found my niche. So I spent some professional experience doing that. And then I just started my master's this past fall um, at CMU again. And I'm getting my master's in human resources and leadership.
Very
So
cool.
yeah,
Very
so that's
cool.
just a little bit about me. But I'm big on sports, I'm big on people, so I figured, similarly to you, like how can I make those passions align with in the business realm?
I feel that. I feel that. That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, appreciate that. So, that kind of turns it to you. What was your process? I know you mentioned when you were applying, you were accepted into the business or the sports management program.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something you always knew that like that is the program for you, or what was the process like for you?
So here's the thing. Back when I was in high school, we had this little program called Connect to Success, right?
Okay.
And it's during our junior year of high school. So we're like 16, 17-year-olds. And at the time, when you're like, I don't know what it was like in Michigan, but when you're 16, 17, living in the suburbs of LA, you don't really think about what we're going to do in the future. You're really, at that point, you're just thinking, okay, I'm in high school. How am I going to get through these AP classes? How am I going to get through these
Yeah.
honors classes? Where am I going to college after? Like, we are not thinking careers at this point.
Right.
So, and like, I'm going to be honest, I'm a pretty average, like, B student, right? So I try, but I don't apply myself that much sometimes.
Okay.
So when it comes down to it, we have this Connect to Success project. And what happens is we're supposed to be linked up with like a mentor or an industry professional, and we job shadow them for the day, and then you turn something in. A lot of people, including me, like I was going to do it. Like, we kind of BS the assignment because it's something they make every junior do every year. So what happened with me was, I told my mom about the assignment, and my mom, being, the very traditional Filipino woman that she is, she's like, okay, you're not going to BS this assignment. You're going to take it seriously. So she calls someone that she, worked with her or whatever, and then they make some phone calls, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, I'm getting an email from Wasserman Media Group. And I just happened to get a job shadowing, or an opportunity to job shadow one of the biggest agents in the world, in Richard Motzkin. And Richard Motzkin, if you'll Google him later, he's perhaps one of the biggest soccer agents in the world. He represents like half the, U.S. women's national team and the U.S., national men's team. And at the time, I'm not really big into soccer. I had friends that like played soccer at school. So I would tell them, and they're like, oh, that's so cool, blah, blah, blah. And I was thinking like, oh, okay, that's cool. But I got to job shadow him and Ted Helfrich, who was his coordinator at the time. And I got to go down to their office down in Westwood. And I was just blown away by the entire experience, the way they were explaining, their operations, how their office culture is, like on a weekday, they'll just see like Russell Westbrook walking through the office, or AD will just come in. And at the time, for a 16, 17-year-old kid, you're thinking, wow, I want this job. This is like the contemporary idea of the modern image of success, right? Like, this is what I need to be. This is what I want to be. And once I saw that, once I just tasted it, right? I didn't get to look at anything cool. I saw their office. I got to look at, a couple of details here and there, but I knew nothing about the industry. I just knew I wanted that job in particular. I wanted to work at that company right there. So from then on out, I was like, yo, I want to be a sports agent. I want to be a sports agent. And then after that, I think it's your junior year of high school. That's when you have to start like looking at colleges and start touring and stuff like that. So I toured one college. I toured LMU, and I was like, this is cool. I want to go here, close to home. I get to visit my family. A lot of my resources are still here, and I want to go there. So I made a little list. Honestly, it was the college application process is so traumatizing for me. Like, I still remember all 9 schools that I applied to. But I ended up applying to just all West Coast schools, and they were either marketing, and I think the only sport management programs I applied to were Pepperdine, waitlisted, and Syracuse. And everything else was just marketing, like just pure marketing. And I figured, okay, if I do marketing during undergrad, when I get out, I'll focus more on sports, or I'll do something, blah, 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 blah. But I saw sport management at Syracuse, saw sport management at Pepperdine, and there's not a lot of sport management schools where I wanted to go to school personally. So I was like, let's do it. I got in for sport management at Syracuse. Let's go there. So that's how I ended up at Syracuse. And that's how I ended up choosing my major. Yeah.
Awesome. That's so cool. And, this is probably the $1 million question, Jake, that you've probably gotten a lot of and might not like. So I apologize in advance. But now that you're graduating, like, I know you mentioned you aspire to be a basketball agent, but like, do you have like a plan set for right now, or like, do you know what's coming up?
Yes. So here, honestly, that wasn't the $1 million question, but I love that because I actually asked that question. I love asking, I love putting people on that pressure platform and asking them, hey, what's the plan after college? Where are you going? What job do you have? Right? Because everyone wants to know. Everyone's a little nosy about that. And so am I. So with me, a lot of my friends, shout out to them. A lot of my friends are getting into grad school now. A lot of them are posting their acceptances. A lot of them are getting, they're doing their law school stuff. They're getting in. For me personally, I wanted to take my time with this process because I'm not the strongest student personally. On the surface, I seem like I'm all right. I know how to talk to people, but that's me. I'm not a standardized test taker. I think I got like a 1210 out of 1600 on my SAT. Like, I am not the strongest test taker, but I will try, I'll try my butt off the entire time. So my plan, and I'm currently doing it right now, is I'm actually with Global Prep Academy. They were my mentor. David was the one that actually helped me get into Syracuse in the first place. He's put together this 4-month plan for me to study for my LSAT, and I see him at least once a week in order to sort of go through, what do I need to work on in terms of LSAT prep? What else do we need to prepare for? Are there essays we need to have done? And that's sort of my path. I think I'm taking it in September, I want to say, and then hopefully applying for spring admission, or if I have to wait a little more, I'll do fall admission of next year. But that's sort of my plan as of right now. And I'm looking to go to law schools back on the West Coast, because as much as I love Syracuse, my personality is just like, I need to be in a city. I can't be in a suburb. I need to be in some, place that has constant change. But that's my plan after. So yeah.
Okay, gotcha. And now, just to be upfront with you, I'm not too familiar with just what goes into being like an agent and everything. Is law school a necessary part of that?
So if you want to be an NBA agent or a FIBA agent, yes,
Okay.
law school is 1,000% necessary. I believe there's other roles like a manager or some sort of management company there where you don't need to have a law degree or you don't need to go to law school after. But for my industry and the position that I want specifically, yes, law school is one of those barriers that you have to sort of overcome in order
Okay.
to, become what you want to do and chase your dreams. So that's sort of my goal right now.
Perfect. Awesome. That makes a lot of sense. And that definitely helps kind of like, for me, just like understand the vision and the goals and like the path that you're going to be on. So that's really cool to hear. I know you mentioned you were able to do the job shadowing and everything back in high school, but other than that, has there ever been any like agents in the NBA or just in general that you've really looked up to or that you aspire to be like, or are you just kind of trying to do your own thing?
So I've been blessed to have been surrounded by a number of agents and managers within the past 4 years that have given me excellent advice. But so the school I'm actually in, like, how, like in your school, you probably have a business school and a college of arts and sciences. In my school for sport management, our school is called the David Falk School of Human Dynamics. I really hope I didn't butcher that. But so David Falk just happened to be Jordan's agent. And when we get to Syracuse, like every year, like our freshman year, he has a conversation with us along with one of our professors, and they tell us up front, do not become an agent. And I listened to that for like the first 2 years. And that's when I sort of flipped into marketing and sort of expanded my horizons to understand like sponsorship and, other aspects of like the industry. But then I circled back and I ended up wanting to be, a basketball agent. But in terms of actual agents, in the internship that I'm in now, he's perhaps like one of my greatest mentors that I've ever had. And it's Andrew Stallings. He's the CEO and founder of the Othello Group. And he has taught me more about the industry than I could have ever imagined. And before him was Jake Kelfer, who runs the professional basketball combine. And he also, he was an aspiring agent at the time. And he ended up creating this super dope secondary basketball combine that I got to be a part of when I was only 19. Like, I was super young when I joined that. And then other than that, there's been a list of other agents. I'm gonna shout them out because I can. Like Silas Gaines, he's the CMO over at Slash Sports. Chuck Mizaraka, he's an agent over at Slash Sports. Jonathan Stoller, he runs Stoller Sports and Entertainment. Keyshawn over with I don't know what he runs, but I know he's like Ty Cockfield's agent. Like, there's been Gary Durant. Like, I'm so sorry. I'm so into it right now because this is my space.
Yeah.
Like, I'm talking fast. Like, I'm in the zone right now. But that's what I love about the industry is, getting to know so many agents, getting to know so many people within my field, and having them just sort of put me on and give me advice to sort of help me benefit and grow as the person that I want to be. Because, you don't just give advice to anyone. You don't just tell people, hey, do this, do that, do that. You give advice to people that you trust and you want to see succeed, and you hope in the future they will, at some point return the favor for you. So that's why I love this industry. I love reaching out to other agents, and it's a hungry field. It's competitive. So if they didn't believe in me, then by all means, they would have never given me advice in the first place.
For sure. Definitely. And, Jake, I have to ask, you've you mentioned that you're a hungry person right now, and like just off the record when we've chatted, you've just mentioned like you have this hunger and this drive.
Mm-hmm.
Where does that come from?
Ooh, that's a fun one. All right, so yeah, I'm gonna sound like a broken record because I think I said traditional like 3 times already.
Yeah.
But let me put a flip on it. So both of my parents are actually from Hawaii, right?
Okay.
And they were born to very, very, very traditional parents of Filipino background. Like my I'm sorry if you can hear like noise in the back, just let me know. I can't really
Oh, you're
do
good.
anything about that. But so both of my parents grew up in Hawaii, but my grandparents both sets of grandparents came to America, and they actually migrated to or immigrated to Hawaii. And what they used to do in order to get, side cash, like my great grandfather was a soldier and he found his way over to Hawaii. And my other great grandfather was a pineapple farmer. So I come from really, really humble beginnings to the point. Oh, actually, I've never been able to tell this story like recorded. So this is awesome. So my great grandfather on my mom's side was a pineapple farmer. And what he used to do was he would make, I think it was, he would make like $8 or 10 to $8 a week. And what he would do is he would save $2 for himself and send the $8 back to the Philippines so his family could come over to America. And sort of through learning stories like that and just being passed down, you know different stories of that nature just through word of mouth from like experiences with my grandparents, those humble beginnings from that to my grandparents also, because once they moved here, like my grandparents also still had to work in the pineapple fields. They were still trying to provide for their family and stuff like that to give them the best that they could. And then when it got to my parents grew up in, I'd say like low middle class housing to like almost poverty, but they weren't like super super poor, but they were living.
Hmm.
Um so my parents grew up like that. They were, they worked their butts off. And then you get me as a byproduct. I grew up in, perhaps one of the most privileged neighborhoods in Southern California. And I get to have the privilege of going to a private a predominantly white institution all the way across the country, right?
Right.
So when I know I have, stories like that, and in my blood, I have the same blood as the people that were working weeks and weeks and weeks just to work for $6 to get for their family. And then you look at the resources that I have now, like I don't have to worry about proper internet. I don't have to worry about certain school equipment. I don't have to worry about, what opportunities are going to come my way because I'm there to take every opportunity that's coming my way. I don't let any stone turn on, was it any stone turn unturned or something like that.
Left
So
unturned.
that's what, there we go. Man, yeah, you definitely took AP Psych in high school. But yeah, that was basically it. So my parents, the way they raised me was the same way they were raised. It's very neo-traditional though, in a sense where I'm still raised with the same traditional values like work hard, provide for your family, never back down to anyone type stuff. But they also gave me, ideas that were, I'd say, a lot more contemporary and modern. Like they don't say like, oh, they say make sure you get rest. You don't always have to do, people are going to get disappointed. You don't have to always make sure everyone is solid. You can make sure that you take time for yourself. You can worry about mental health. You can worry about being stressed. It's okay to take a break every now and then. And I think it's sort of a combination between those two where I'm like, okay, I'm going to do the best that I can possibly do with the tools and resources at my disposal. So, a lot of the kids I go to school with, they're the byproducts of like, what's it called? Like parents with, undisclosed networks that I would never see, some of the most prestigious private and boarding schools in the country. And they have all this, like high level or, was it, uh, high level income where it's just like they have everything. They were literally given everything. So they weren't raised like me. They're not hungry. They don't, we want the same things, but I'm willing to work twice as hard just to get half the way. Like that's really what drives me. Like I'm such a competitive person, like in my heart. But when I see kids with like privilege and the same privilege as me, and they don't want it as much as me, I see it as an opportunity to sort of take that over. Like if you and I want the same job, you got more resources than I do. Oh, you better believe I'm working my butt off just to get there before you do. You better believe that. So that's really where I think I got this hunger instilled in me.
Oh man, I love that. That gets me fired up just hearing that, Jake.
On me. Let's go fight someone, dude. Like I'm ready. Like, yeah.
It's wild. Like, I mean, and I haven't told you this or anything, but and just for anyone listening and for you too, Jake, just some like context. Like, I've I'm 25, and in my time as a professional, I've interviewed like for jobs over 1,000 people.
Mhm.
And I've talked to a lot of people. I've seen a lot of resumes. I've seen a lot of people kind of like reaching out cold, like, hey, I'm so and so. I'd love an interview, or whatever.
Mhm.
But when you reached out to me, there was something that just like in that moment, I was like, let's talk to Jake. This is going to be a good conversation. This kid has a lot to say. I just had a feeling, like a good gut feeling about
Oh man.
interacting with you. But I don't think I could have expected necessarily this much fire and hunger. And I love that, because in the like when you reach out, you message like you're just a hungry like college student and everything, and you'd love to like talk about that. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, maybe you'll talk about how we, skip some parties and stuff to work hard at like, whatever he's pursuing. But to hear kind of like your stories and your background and just that drive that you have, man, like it's really incredible to hear. And it's not like I'm that much older than you or anything, right? But just like
Mhm.
to hear someone like you that is younger, I'm like, that's incredible. Like, you remind me of myself when I was that age and like things that I
Talk
was
about it,
doing.
Zach. Talk
And I'm
about
like,
it,
this
man.
is amazing, because like I love people in general. I have a lot of great friends, a lot of great people I talk to, regularly or every so often. And something that comes up in those conversations are like I really want to do something, but I don't want to get started, or I don't want to start posting on YouTube because what if I look stupid, or
Mhm.
it's kind of like they have that strong desire,
Mhm.
but the hunger or the fire is not there.
I feel that.
And
Hey,
yeah,
man. Yeah. So I was gonna ask because you here. This is a great sort of transition point into like posting content and stuff like that. So I love this right now. So
yeah,
I'm like I said, I'm still what's it called in my position. So like I work with the Othello Group. I'm the executive marketing assistant right now. Like I'm still an intern. This was a position that I picked up for my capstone.
okay,
So I'm like, and I run a lot of like social media and stuff. But even you with your podcast, right? Just like you hit it on the nail. There are so many people that I see, just in general. Like there's kids in high school, kids in college, I see professionals still doing this where they're like, I'm gonna start, posting this. I'm gonna make
hmm,
an Instagram channel. I'm gonna make a YouTube channel. I'm gonna do this, and then there's so much strategy and planning behind everything they're gonna do, but you just hit it, But they'll do everything but post it. There's
hmm,
everyone can talk, right? Like you and I are talking right now,
yeah,
and I appreciate it because I think you and I are, relatively similar in terms of hunger, drive, this fire, this real like dog mentality.
yeah,
But when it comes down to it, when it comes to applying that to marketing and applying it to whatever passion project you're working on, there's so much strategy involved. There's so much planning, and
yeah,
people miss the point completely where they're like, dude, just go post. Just how do you know if anything's ever going to work or not if you don't actually do it? We can
yeah,
talk about it all day. You and I can talk about, oh, we're going to build this cool thing. But if you don't actually get out and build it, then nothing's going to come of it. It's going to be just another idea. And like that's something I see way too often. Like, walk me through like how did you come up with your Zap podcast in the first place? Like what drove you to say, oh, you know what? I'm gonna post this first episode. I don't care. It's going up. Like walk me through that whole process.
for sure. Yeah. So like I've kind of touched on earlier, I love connecting with people. I've always been one of those people. Like I'll go out to a restaurant and I'll talk to like my waiter, waitress, the host, hostess, whatever. I'll go to the grocery store, and whoever's bagging my groceries, like I'll have a full conversation with them, and like not
Mm-hmm.
just like, hey, how's it going? What's the weather like? Like I'll be like, oh, I see you're wearing like, I don't know, like a Pistons hat, like you big Pistons
Mm-hmm.
fan, whatever. So I've always liked to dive into deep conversations and stuff like that with people. And I consider myself very, very grateful to have the friends that I do have, and, to have met some of the people that I've met and everything. So I would just talk to these people just like personally on like a phone call, whatever. And we would just have these great conversations. And I would be like, wow, like these people are saying really good things that I I want other people to hear about, because like we're talking about things like you and I are talking about, like getting the drive and actually going out and doing stuff, not just saying it and talking about it, but doing it. So I was like, how can I combine that? And I've always loved people like Jimmy Fallon, James Corden, Ellen, like talk show host people.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, why can't I do that? And I was like, there's no reason why I can't. So I will. So I just like started learning, like, how can I host a podcast? Like, what kind of hosting platform? How does it work? The uploading, the recording, all that stuff. I've failed a lot. Like, there's a lot of mistakes that led me to this point. Like, there's just so much learning with it. But I had to have that mentality, like, I don't care if I fail. I don't care if this is a complete flop, and like if people don't listen to it or whatever. And with the podcast, like I just was like, okay, so it was like the middle or end of March 2021, where I was like, let me start doing this. Let me get to work. And basically at that point, I just started reaching out to my network and saying like, hey, doing this podcast, planning on hopefully launching it soon. Would you like to come on as a guest, talk about passions, talk about whatever? And people, like, I was like, maybe some people will say yes, but like people were saying yes left and right.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, maybe I'm onto something. And then, at first I was like, maybe it's just because people are being nice, they want to support me, which I think, definitely was part of it. I was like, that's cool. Like, I appreciate it. But then people were, having these conversations with me. And then afterwards, it's like, oh my God, that was incredible. Like, the whole conversation was amazing. And I was just getting really positive feedback, which really meant a lot to me. So that kind of fueled me more. And where we're at right now with the podcast, Jake, like there's only been a few episodes out. I put out an introduction, and then I put out, I do one episode a week just for sustainability purposes and stuff. And those episodes are with a guest and everything. And, I'm still early on in the process, but I'm learning each week, like, all right, so I'm putting like my social media posts out at this time, like, does it get a lot of traction, or should I do it at like this time? What hashtag should I use? Stuff like that. And just even like quality of like recording and stuff. Like, I don't edit any of these podcasts. It's all completely organic. So like if someone like knocked on your door and you had to go answer it right now, people would hear that. Like that's just the realness of this podcast. But I was just kind of like, why can't I do it? Like, let's go for it. And I was just like, let's upload it. And that's where I'm at, man. And my goal in life, what I aspire to do is to empower and inspire people. So even if just one person, says, I listened to Zach's podcast, is that podcast, and it inspired me, it motivated me, or the guest said something and it changed my life. I don't care about anything else. Like, I'm not doing this to make a lot of money. I'm not doing this to get famous of any sort or anything. Like, I'm just trying to give people a platform like yourself who have some cool stories and cool perspectives, and giving you that platform to inspire people. Because I'll tell you, like, the conversation we've had so far, man, like, if I wasn't me and like I just stumbled across this and heard it, I'd be like, wow, like these guys are onto something. They're talking about like hustle and grinding and working hard, and like that would motivate me. So yeah, hope that answers your question.
Man, you are such a genuine person, dude. Are you kidding me? You are so genuine as a person. Hey, so I gotta ask, man. Here,
Yeah,
so there's like a multi-layered question, right?
yeah,
But here, so like so my theme for this next question is like connecting with people, right? Just keep it
yeah.
just keep that in mind, because I tend to, you know, create side quest when I
Okay.
ask a question, right? So the initial setup question for you actually is like, you remember being in my shoes. You remember being, a fourth year undergrad student at CMU, wondering what the next step is in life, right?
Yeah.
So during your interviews, you've probably gotten a variation of a question like, what makes you special? What value do you bring to the table? What was your answer whenever someone said, what makes you special? What makes you different? How can you help our team? What value does Zach Host personally bring to the table?
I like that. Honestly, like, I'm gonna say my answer, and you might just be sitting there and be like, man, that sounds really familiar.
Mm-hmm.
I would always say that I I might not be the smartest. I might not be
Mm-hmm.
the best at something, but I will guarantee you that I will outwork anyone else in this world for
Okay.
what that is, for whatever the position will be. And there's been
Interesting.
times where I've gone into things not knowing what I'm doing at all. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is completely a new field for me. And I'm like, I don't care. That doesn't scare me, because I will put in the time and I will work hard. And it's all about leveraging like that network and that connection and just putting in the work when others aren't.
Wow.
You know, like going, so just to kind of walk you through, and anyone listening through, I guess, who doesn't know, um, junior year of college, junior year of undergrad is the fall semester was the first time that I was a psych major officially.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I need to find an internship for the summer. I went to the job fair and I ended up landing an internship with Kohl's department stores for
Wow.
a store management internship for the summer. I ended up landing that with no retail experience previously.
You're
And I
insane.
was the only person that was given an offer without retail experience.
I'd be so mad. I'd be so mad.
So that was like how I went into it. And then I knew going into that summer that the best case scenario was I do really well in that internship, I crush it. And then at the end of the summer, they offer me a full-time job. So then I go back as a senior knowing that I have a job lined up after graduation. So I told myself that is what I'm going to get, and no one's going to stop me from that. So leading
Wow.
up to the internship, I went on LinkedIn and I probably messaged 50 people that did the internship a year or two before me and just said, like, I introduced myself, said, hey, I'm doing this internship. It's really important to me. I'd love the opportunity for 5 minutes to pick your mind, ask you some questions.
You
And
sound like me.
right.
Yeah,
some
you sound like
people
me.
some people were like, oh yeah, sure. Some people were like, sorry, I don't have the time. And some didn't respond. But
Mm-hmm.
it's a game of numbers. You know, you reach out to one
Exactly.
person, your odds might be slim. You reach out to 100 people, you're gonna get some yeses.
Yep.
So I did stuff like that. I went into my internship junior year, the summer of junior year, and big thing with Kohl's and just retailers in general is customer service satisfaction. So at Kohl's, you know, every week you get graded on how satisfied your customers report via survey. And at my store specifically, it was never over a 90%. 89% was the highest satisfaction that store has ever received for a week in 25 years since it's been there. And the second day, I told the store manager, before the time I leave in 8 weeks, it is going to be above a 90%. I promise you that.
Oh, you're insane.
And I believe I don't have it off the top of my head, but I believe it was week 6, 5 or 6 was when it came in at a 93%.
Wow.
First time in 25 years. And I can't take all the credit for that and say like, oh, it was all me, because really it
Uh,
was my team that did all the work. I think I was just able to get them to buy into this goal. And literally I would just go up to them and be like, hey, we're going to get at least a 90 today, right? And they're like, yeah, sure. And I was like, no, we're going to do it. And they're like, okay, yeah. And then after like a couple of weeks, they're like, yeah, Zach, we're doing it. We're going to do this. We're going to get this. And it was just kind of getting people to buy into that. So like, there's an example of it for you. And then like, just, you know, gratefully summer went really well. And around that same like week 6 out of 8 weeks, they said, you've been crushing it. You have a full-time offer for when you graduate. So I accepted that.
wow.
And then, you know, there was an opportunity as a senior to be a recruiter for Kohl's. So basically I was recruiting for the same internship that I did the previous summer, and then also recruiting students from throughout the Midwest for the same internship at their respective state. And going into that, so CMU was a pretty good campus for Kohl's. We were top 5 in the country for like in terms of getting students, and then those students actually getting the full-time offer, and then being
Wow.
a successful manager. We were top 5, and I went into that position senior year saying top 5's not good enough. We're going to be number 1.
That's that dog
And
right there. That's what I was
by the
waiting
end of
for.
the year, we finished number 1 in the country.
Oh, you're cold.
So I mean,
Oh,
it's just stuff like that, man. And then like, you know, after graduation, I started working, and then it's basically you do a 12-week program. After 12 weeks, you get a placement, which is like your permanent location, yada yada yada. I was doing that. 5 weeks into it, I got promoted when it was supposed
wow.
to take 12 weeks. And then I'm at
Wow.
another store, just like doing a lot of good stuff, and you know, having a good time. And then it was like about a month and a half in, all right, you got a promotion. Do you want it or not? And I took that. So, I mean, it's just that mentality, man, that like no one can stop me. And like the only person that can limit me in life is myself. And I tell you these stories, and like anyone listening to these stories, not to like brag or make it sound like I'm this incredible God that like can do anything and I've done crazy things, because that's not even me. Like I don't even like to talk about my accomplishments, to be honest with you.
I feel that. Hey,
Right.
tweet that. Tweet that,
Exactly.
dude.
but it's
Tweet that.
important, I think, and that's why I like this platform, for us to have these kind of conversations. So the kid that's a freshman in college, or a sophomore in high school, can listen to this conversation and be like, Jake and Zach worked their butts off, and while other people were out partying or out sleeping, or not out sleeping, but sleeping, or sleeping in, or
Yeah.
whatever, these kids were grinding and hustling. And that's not to say, like, I don't want anyone to think like you and I don't have like a personal life where we hang out with friends or do cool stuff, because we both, I've definitely done it, I'm sure you have too. But I
Yeah.
think, like, at the end of the day, just finding that balance and just knowing that if something's important to you, you're going to make it happen. You're going to put in the work. And
1000%.
that's all it comes down to. Like, if it doesn't matter enough to you, and that's okay if it doesn't. If it's not that important, like, you won't put in the time and effort, and that's okay too. But when you really want something, you have to find that hunger, and you just have to chase 100% after it.
Oh man, you sound like a life coach right now. Like I want to go out and like tackle a bear. Like I'm hungry. But,
I love that,
man. Oh, dude, that your story just way off the rails. I was gonna reconnect it back, but I know we have like a limited amount of time because I know you got something else to do.
Yeah.
But here, let me, because I can cut this into like 3 minutes. I promise you.
Yeah.
But so that was seriously that was a lot. Seriously, my adrenaline is all time high right now. But so the original question to that was, what value do you bring? What sets you apart? What makes you
Yeah.
special? And clearly, you gave me a lot of examples, so I applaud you, sir. But
Thank you.
bringing it back to connecting with people and sort of this whole spectrum, whenever I'm approached or whenever I'm asked that question, what makes you special? What value do you bring? I personally, me, and like I'm mean when I interview, like not to interviewers. I'm like the actual person giving the interview to like
Mm-hmm.
another applicant. I ask that same question, and it's a loaded question because I get a lot of kids saying, "Oh, I'm a hard worker. Oh,
Yeah.
this, that, and the other." And like in my head, I'm thinking, okay, everyone's a hard worker. I don't know if
Exactly.
you're a hard worker until I actually see you, right?
Right.
So with me, I'm like you just said, like we're nothing special. We're very, we're rude. We have really good values and we have really good work ethics, right?
Mm-hmm.
But with me personally, whenever I'm asked that question, I purely say I think the best value I can provide is that I understand and I can connect with people on a
Yeah.
deeper level, other than surface. And I think that's something you and I, like when you were just explaining, your whole podcast and how you sort of went through and sort of inspired your team. I think that's something really common that a lot of people don't see as value. But I
Yeah.
think it's an answer that provides so much. And it's a lot of what people need to hear. When you have a kid like you or myself, they come into an interview and they're like, oh, what are you good at? What value can you bring that's different? I honestly, I understand people really well. I can hold a conversation with
Mm-hmm.
literally anyone and I can provide value through that alone. Like if you don't want to take a call, I'll take it for you and I'll learn everything about that individual, that brand, that company. Oh, you don't want to take an interview, you don't want to take a call with this client? I will. I'll take it. Let me screen it for you. If it's not worth your time, I got it. I think really
Yeah.
connecting with people, whether it's on a podcast, whether it's on a call, whether it's just like you said, talking to a person at the grocery store and just
Mm-hmm.
complimenting their Pistons hat. I think it's super valuable to have that sort of asset, you know, to really understand how to communicate with people on a surface, on a level that's deeper than surface. Like nobody wants to talk about the weather every day. Nobody wants to talk
Right.
about stuff like that. But when you can understand a person and really add conversation to their life, I think it opens up so many more opportunities and so many more doors for you just personally.
I totally agree, man. And I think, without even trying to, I think kind of like my message was conveyed to you in the sense of like, I, you and I, like, we both can run through a wall, but
Mm-hmm.
I think we both also have the skill set where we want to inspire someone to run through a wall for us and clear
Yes.
that way. And I think that's like, after I was talking to you just now, you're like, man, I want to go like tackle a bear. That's kind of my goal
I
with every conversation, right? Like, I want to get you
yeah,
inspired. I want to motivate you. And that is a skill set that I truly feel good about that I have. And I see that same in you, man. Like, just as fired up as you are, I feel the same way. And, I'm honestly, like, I wish we didn't have to cut this short, because I could talk to you for hours, man, about this kind of stuff and connect. But, we'll definitely have to have you come back. We'll definitely have
of
to pick up
course.
this conversation or just talk about the next things that you're up to in life. Because Man, I have no doubt that you're going to be doing huge things. I have no doubt about that, man. And I'm excited to see it and hopefully be a part of that journey with you as well.
Appreciate you, Zach. I would love to come back and do a part two, man. I would love to pick up where this conversation left off. But, just like, you would, I know you're going to do great things. I think of this conversation as sort of an investment because I reached out to you because I wanted to be a part. I wanted to be a part of your story, and hopefully down the road, hopefully I'm my image of success or I'm creating my own story, and I would love to come back and just show you what I've done, man. Seriously.
Yeah, man. Anytime. You're always welcome back. We'll definitely chat, and I'm sure we'll have a lot of things to talk about off the record too. So, man, keep me up to date on everything. Go out and keep crushing what you're after, and I'm excited for your future, man.
Awesome. Appreciate you, Zach. Thank you so much, man, and I hope you have a great day.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you too, and you take care. We'll talk soon.
All right, bye.
Bye.